The mayor's a big baseball fan. And if y'all didn't know, the world's best baseball bats are made in Louisville. So this is your customized Louisville Slugger here, Mick, so you can take care of business when you need to here.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, buddy.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Well, I'm happy to bring greetings from my great city of Louisville. We had a little horse race there last Saturday, on the first Saturday in May. And I got to say, I'm tired. We're the only city that has a 2-week festival for a 2-minute horse race. You know, people bop in for Derby weekend. Oh, this is tough. And I was like, I'm on day 13 right now. So I'm on about day 20 for the Kentucky Derby Festival. But it's fantastic. We begin the festival with the largest fireworks show in North America. It's called Thunder Over Louisville. And this is a story I hear a lot, but if I had as much success as Mayor Cornett has had with the NBA, Thunder Over Louisville might look like this. But congrats on the big win last night. Y'all have a fantastic team, and I think had a real shot at winning the whole thing this year. So let's go it. Let's thunder up, right? Well, the Kentucky Derby is an amazing thing for us. We had about 175,000 people on Saturday at the race. The day before, on Friday, there's 125,000 people, and it has about $225 million economic impact on our city. And so that's why, really, no matter what horse I bet on, at the end of the day, I always feel like a winner. Now, I get asked this question a lot. How do you pronounce the name of our city? Louisville, okay? We were founded in 1780 on the Ohio River. That's a big river we have. And our citizens wanted to thank King Louis XVI, because at the time our country was fighting the British, and the French were sending money to us to defeat the British, so we named our city after him. So it's not Louisville or Louisville, it's Louisville. So it has 3 syllables. And so I want to teach y'all how to say the name of our city. So imagine you had marbles in your mouth first. And then you had 2 bourbons as well, okay? So it's a lot easier. So it's Louisville. All right, so say after me. Louisville. All right, now that was slow. Now we'll speed it up. Ready? Louisville. Louisville. Okay, that's pretty good. All right, so keep that up, and next year you'll be able to predict the favorite or the winner of the Kentucky Derby as well. All right, Louisville. All right, now let me talk a little bit about the challenges and opportunities we face as a city. We've heard some great speeches earlier today. Jennifer's talk on Google X really talks about the power of transformation, and you guys are getting it done with your MAPS projects as well. But Google X is a leader amongst a growing number of companies who are really turning what 20 years ago we thought would have been science fiction into today's reality. And we know, and you all are demonstrating this here in OKC, that as city leaders, planners, and developers, we have to do more than kind of understand what's going on in the world. We've got to embrace it. And there's a quote that has been attributed to various people, one of whom is the great Kentuckian Abraham Lincoln, who said, the best way to predict your future is to create it. And it's easy to see that all you guys are doing here with all of your MAPS projects and what we're doing in Louisville, we've been creating our future. And I want to comment on your all's MAPS projects. To me, as a mayor and a business person, entrepreneur, these are just not projects for your city. It's an attitude and a culture that you all have developed in your city. When you can conceive of taking a dried up river, creek, ditch, whatever it was, and turning it into a world-class venue, I mean, that's impressive. And what you're doing in the process, I was here in Oklahoma City about 3 years ago, so I've seen some before and after. But each time when I'm talking to people on the street, I say, do you know anything about these MAPS projects? It is amazing what you all have done as a city in terms of enculturalizing what MAPS is and the involvement of the people in your city, in the future of your city. And I don't want you to take that for granted. You might know that's not usual. What you guys are doing here in Oklahoma City with MAPS is kind of a unique story throughout America. And it is very impressive for me to come back, and it's hard for another mayor to say this about another city, by the way, to come back and just see how you're transforming your city, and you're transforming your people's attitudes at the same time to be citizens. And we've lost a degree of citizenship in our country right now. And a citizen to me is somebody that takes care of themselves and their family, takes care of their employer, so there's a good two-way value-add relationship. But thirdly, does something for their community in which they expect nothing in return except to live in a great city and be an American. And what you guys are doing with the way that you're approaching maps, the citizen involvement, is extraordinary and truly a bright spot in our country right now. So I want to congratulate you on the tremendous work that you've been doing here. Now let's all go back. I want to talk a little bit about my city right now. When I took office in January of 2011, we were still under the cloud of the Great Recession at that time. Unemployment in our city was about 10%, a little bit over than that. I inherited a massive budget deficit. We had little to no job growth, and then obviously lots of anxiety about the future, if we can all think back to the Great Recession. As Mick said, I'm an entrepreneur. I spent my career in business. This is my first job as an elected official. And what I certainly understood is that government by itself never has all of the answers. But what government can do is run a tight ship and ask the right questions and bring the right people together to find the best answers for our problems today and certainly for our future problems as well. So one of the first questions that we posed to ourselves was, and Abraham Lincoln might have said this, was how do we help create the future that our citizens demand and deserve? And that question, of course, has multiple answers, but I'm going to focus on one critical aspect that touches every area of life in our city. And it's a practice that I've honed quite a bit in my business life that you all are doing right now in Oklahoma City, and that's a belief in the transformative power of innovation. So the question is, how do you culturalize innovation? And it's obvious that innovation is really critical to the future of any city. And we saw that especially in the first days in office when we faced these severe budget challenges. So we immediately kind of went about and organized the jobs of city government, much like I'd done in my private sector as well. And people are always saying, oh, these government officials aren't any good. What I found is government officials, at least in Louisville, had not been invested in. They'd been trained in functional excellence, but not kind of human potential. And that's one of the first things that we started doing was massive training with our folks. And then we organized the job around three principles: daily work, continuous improvement work, and innovation work. And we've got about 7,000 employees in city government. And then I've charged every department with being the best in the world at what they do. And why not? Someone's got to be the best, so why not each one of us as individuals and each one of our departments, certainly. And we're the hometown of Muhammad Ali, so constant improvement and innovation have made it possible for us as a city like you guys to punch above our weight compared to other cities in the country. So we trained our workforce around business improvement tools like Lean, Six Sigma, project management, data analytics, and we're putting that to work in city government just like businesses in the private sector have done for a long time. We created something called the Louis Stat Performance Improvement Method, where we set specific measurable goals around being best in the world at what we do and post those goals online for anybody to see. So kind of open government. And this works both ways because, the media loves to be snarky and find things that we're not doing right in here and come at us. But I say, that's fine. It is what it is. And everybody knows you're not perfect. If you act like you're perfect, that's a facade. So we embrace what we call a weakness orientation. As a citizen, I'm more interested in the 5% when things go wrong than the 95% when they go right. So I want them to know that we're working on that 5% to try to get to perfection as close as we can. So we're a national model for this. We've certainly earned national recognition for this effort, and we're hosting the Summit on Government Performance and Innovation on June 15th and 16th with Governing Magazine in our city. So if you're really into this, we'd love to see you there. You could even stay at the flagship 21C Museum Hotel in Main Street in Louisville. 21C is headquartered in Louisville. Right now we've got about 20 hotels either under construction or on planning in Louisville. So like you all, we're going through a tremendous renaissance as well. And you're going to love 21C. Great ownership group, super creative what they do. When you go and see the new 21C, you're going to say, this is a creative bunch here. In terms of contemporary art, they are edgy. Okay, so if you want an edgy contemporary art scene, you are about ready to get it. And then they change their collection frequently as well. So you're not going to have a stale hotel here. So congratulations on getting a 21C. Everybody wants one of those. So promoting innovative businesses like 21C and hosting events like the summit I just referred to are certainly a small part, but they're an important part of the culture, or the culture of creating innovation in your city. But most importantly, and I'm talking now as city government, if you want to consistently innovate, you have to dedicate resources to personnel that are just responsible for innovating in your city and use those organizing principles around your organization. So I'd ask you, this is what I did as a business person, so for your private businesses, are you dedicating innovation resources? If you don't, it is so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day that the world can pass you by. Your MAPS projects are a great civic example of dedicating resources to innovation. So a critical step for us along the way was joining a mutual learning cohort of 4 other cities 4 years ago that was funded by Bloomberg Philanthropies to build our innovation capacity. Michael Bloomberg was looking for 5 cities in the country where we could experiment to say, can you consistently innovate within city government? So we then established a dedicated innovation team, we call them I-teams, that are fully focused on innovation projects. We created the country's first Office for Civic Innovation 5 years ago, and then also created something called our Office for Performance and Improvement and Innovation. So I'm kind of into this stuff and did this as part of my life in the private sector and have brought it to city government as well. So what these teams do together is work to create alignment amongst our departments within city government. We have some 24 plus departments, and then use data and analytics to help us track performance, align our projects, our daily work with our strategic plan, and build tactical goals for the city around areas like public health, education, our built environment, many of the things we're talking about here today. And the alignment and harmony have made a real difference. Because I've learned something about bureaucracy. You know, people usually complain about bureaucrats. Bureaucrats will keep doing kind of the same thing over and over again. That's what bureaucracy is. But they don't lean to change because that's not the nature of it. But what I have found is that when you lean out a process, when you make it as innovative as possible and insert that process into government, the bureaucracy is happy to follow that as well. So it's a good thing. If you look at it in a positive way, bureaucrats protect us from bad elected officials. And there are bad elected officials out there. So they've been very helpful in our innovation approach. Now, we've also used our innovation approach with external challenges. So let me give you a couple examples for that. The 2 biggest cities in Kentucky are Louisville and Lexington, and have traditionally been involved in a fairly counterproductive rivalry. And it's partly based on sports. University of Louisville versus University of Kentucky, it's our version of Bedlam. But in the 21st century, we've got to think bigger than this. We have to think globally and marshal our best resources to compete. Lexington is about 40% the size of Louisville, maybe about 300,000 people in the city itself, but their mayor is another business guy like me, and we knew each other before we were elected. So we got together at the beginning of our terms in office and discarded this old non-productive rivalry approach and mentality between the 2 cities. Because let's face it, right now we are in a global competition. Whether you're Oklahoma City or Louisville, we're competing against Singapore, we're competing against Hong Kong, and cities within the United States as well. So for 2 cities in 1 state that's a smaller state, our population's about 4.5 million, not too different from Oklahoma, to be competing against each other, that's just stupid. So we put that to the side and created a regional economic development plan that has a footprint of about 2.5 million people. So now when global economic development decisions are being made, they're looking at our region, the Bluegrass Economic Advancement region, as opposed to just Louisville or Lexington. So it's really been a good thing where rising tide has lifted all boats. Our partnership's initial focus was advanced manufacturing. We have about 100,000 jobs between the two cities in this area in sectors like automotive, appliance, translation software, bourbon. And by the way, a quirky fact that you're seeing here, we are the world's leading producers of disco balls as well. And I can tell you that's not a big market, but people like to look at disco balls. Now, this partnership with Lexington includes 22 counties between us. Louisville and Lexington are about 70 miles apart, and it's been incredibly successful for us. 5 straight years of record-breaking export growth, with 2015 exports totaling more than $28 billion a year. We also bring innovation to bear on other economic and social challenges. Like the rest of the country, I assume it's a problem here, we just cannot find enough software coders. So we've got thousands of good jobs that we struggle to fill no matter how quickly we produce more software coders. So we created something called Code Louisville. Code Louisville is a free 12-week training session so that citizens of all ages can learn about software coding. About 1,000 people have been through it so far. And then Code Louisville has been recognized as a national best practice as part of the White House's Tech Hire initiative. As part of Code Louisville, we conducted a special coding class training session for low-income teens at the Beecher Terrace housing complex. You're seeing a picture of them right here. So this initiative addresses 2 challenges at once, and I would encourage y'all when you're thinking about your projects, how many different areas or challenges can you address in your city through one initiative? Through this particular one, obviously, we're filling tech job vacancies, but we're also addressing the persistently high rates of unemployment amongst young African-American males that we see in cities around our country. Beecher Terrace is where we did this, so we call this project Coding at the Beach. And this group of young entrepreneurs did something that really impressed us and showed us we were on the right track. So here's another short video that tells their story.
They are taking Code Louisville to a new level. They started their own web business and could be the youngest entrepreneurs in town.
Eye contact, and he's given me a firm handshake. Justin, it's my pleasure to meet you.
Words of wisdom from a man who knows a lot about the world of business.
Start off by saying, I only need 2 minutes, and I'll explain my product, and then I'll get out. But if you can get in that door, your odds go up 1,000%.
Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher's father, George Fisher, shares business advice with the city's newest entrepreneurs, local teens from the Code Louisville program, developed in the Beecher Terrace area, one of the city's most notorious housing projects. They took what they learned during the school year and started Beach Technologies. The company provides small businesses with websites at an affordable cost. The teens, all minorities, hoping to pave the way for students who look like them. Dyrese Breckenridge, a recent high school graduate, is in charge of sales. She says her perseverance and can-do attitude will be an asset to the team.
My son, he's been an inspiration to me to continue to go forward on with my life. I mean, I am going to EKU and I might be leaving him for a few months, but he knows that I'm actually doing something with my life.
President Obama met with the students in April, a meeting that also inspired the new business. A company that grew right out of Beecher Terrace, the students say they hope others can better see the good in the neighborhood.
We're making a positive organization out of what people see as the bad part of town.
The young entrepreneurs work 30 hours a week, and along with the experience, they say the extra cash doesn't hurt either. Reporting in downtown Louisville, Samantha Chapman, WDRB News.
So this summer, we're scaling the program even further. We created a program called Summer Works 5 years ago when I started in office to make sure that kids have jobs in the summer. And we're focusing on young people that don't have a mom or dad or aunt or uncle can call a friend and say, hey, Johnny needs a job. So we'll have 2,750 jobs this summer. It's been a great private-public partnership to make sure kids like this get a summer job experience, a mentoring experience, so that they see there's a path to a hopeful future, a future where they're connected in it as well. So we'll be scaling this effort this summer. And I think what this story tells us was, and this was a little surprising, because Beecher Terrace, I'm sure you guys have got your own version of Beecher Terrace in Oklahoma City. People see it as a tough area. There's more violence that takes place there than what I would like to see. But there's great kids everywhere. They just need a shot. And the job of all of us as civic leaders is to give these folks a shot. We established... Thank you. Related to this, we established an office called the Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods in 2012 in our city. We had a triple homicide take place in the month before that, and it really shocked our city. Our homicide rate in Louisville is about the same as Oklahoma City's, and each time, which is average for the country, it's bad to say a homicide is average, but average in terms of rate per 100,000 citizens. And our goal, obviously, is to eliminate homicides. Homicides are on the rise all over the country right now, in cities all over our country, and we're seeing that in Louisville, we're seeing that in Oklahoma City as well. So we established our Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods. Its job is to work with community partners to reduce the numbers, not only of homicides, but suicides and drug overdoses in our city. So when you think about what the responsibility is for a city, one of them is to make sure people live long and healthy lives. So when someone is struck down by a bullet or takes their own life or by heroin or whatever it might be, that's a real collective loss to our city. So that's what the Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods works on. We've raised about $10 million in private and federal grants to support our efforts. I want to share one of the promising programs. It's a program called Pivot to Peace. And this initiative intervenes with hospital patients who are receiving treatment for either a gunshot wound or a knife wound or other violent crime injuries, and who come from some of our highest crime zip codes. A social worker intervenes right at that time and connects with them in the hospital in an effort to prevent retribution crimes and provide options to guide these citizens in our city toward a bright and better future. We're 100% so far when we intervene with these folks. The toughest challenge in reducing violent crime is contacting the folks who are involved or around the criminal activity. All the good kids show up. It's the kids that you want that are right in the middle of this game, and it's a tough, violent game. So Pivot to Peace is one of our solutions to reduce homicides, as I said, a problem that every American city is seeing right now. And there's one more Louisville innovation I'd like to share with you. Sometimes you know you're doing something innovative by the looks that folks give you when you start talking about it. And that's what happened when I told people in my 2011 inaugural address that one of my top goals as mayor for the city was to make our city an even more compassionate city. Some people thought that was odd or inappropriate. They told me that I would look weak if I talked about something like compassion, but I said I totally disagree. It is easy to be a cynic on the couch and be skeptical about the future and about how our communities come together, and it's much more difficult to be compassionate and try to lift everyone up. I define compassion as respect for each and every one of our citizens so that their human potential is flourishing and thriving, shining like the sun. And our citizens have responded in a tremendous way and built that bond of citizenship that I feel in your city as well. And I really think it's important for leaders in our country to unite our citizens around human values like kindness, hospitality, and compassion. We're living in a day, as we all know, where there's all types of divisive rhetoric that's taking place. And I'd ask you in your countries, in your companies, if you talked in your companies like we hear some political leaders talking in our country right now, how long would you stay in business? You'd be done. So what's our responsibility for all of those that have a podium, whether it's as an elected official or civic leaders like yourself, to unite people around these core values that we all were born with? To bring that to life, we established what we call the Mayor's Give a Day Week of Service, and that's an annual celebration of compassion in our city where citizens from all parts of our city come together and do massive volunteer projects like building beds for kids that are transitioning out of homeless shelters, or doing painting or landscape work for a Boys and Girls Club. Last month, we broke our own world record for compassion with about 175,000 volunteers and acts of compassion in 1 week in our city. So cultivating compassion as a city value is also a way of what I call building social muscle. And we've all seen what can happen in cities like Ferguson or Baltimore when a city does not have social muscle. We saw our own social muscles tested in our city last year. So we have about 5 mosques in Louisville. We're a strong interfaith global city. Someone painted some hateful graffiti on the walls of one of our local mosques. The people who attend the mosque are outstanding citizens. They're tremendous citizens. They give generously of their time and resources to numerous local causes. So this really felt like a punch in the gut to the entire city. We held a press conference the next morning and invited the community to come out and paint away the hate the next afternoon. And we didn't know what the response would be, but the final video shows what happened.
As a Muslim woman here in our city, I was heartbroken on Friday night when I came here and Barbara called me and we saw what had happened at this holy mosque.
I just don't understand why it was done. There's a point to get across that this wasn't the way to do it.
In these situations, we realize we're more alike than we are different.
Muhammad commends the good people of his hometown of Louisville who have come together with compassion and love in their hearts to repair the damage done to this beautiful place of worship.
We got a lot more people here than we have building to paint. We want to line up here in 4 rows from here out. We'd like for the kids to come up first so that you can be part of this history making as well, because this is yours.
We really felt really strong about it that we wanted to do something about it. We brought some solvents and things to help clean up the graffiti. It was a really good thing. I mean, just to come out and see everybody and to be a part of something bigger and this interfaith community is really nice.
Not everyone is a part of the same religion, and just the fact that everyone's taking the time to come out today and support each other shows that there really aren't that many differences between people.
It's a really cool feeling to see how many people actually come together to be a part of this whole thing, and how inviting everyone is and how welcoming everyone is.
I think that the community coming together is evidence that hate can never win, that love will always win. God is love and God will always win. And I am so thankful to live in this community.
This should be beginning of love, friendship, brotherhood, and a fraternity among us, people of different faiths. So please, please continue this journey till the last day of our life.
Thank you. Thank you. So as you can imagine, I was never prouder of our city than I was on that day. And I call the results of that work social innovation. And I want to say too, compassion is good for business. I was talking not long ago to the CEO of a company named ComputerShare. We were in a big battle with the rest of the country on where they were going to be locating their North American operations. Fortunately, we won. There'll be over 1,000 jobs when it's all said and done. And I asked him, I said, in the end, why did you choose our city? And he looked at me straight in the eye and he said, Mayor, I loved your focus on compassion. I was like, right on, man. Thank you very much. Now I've got compassion is good for business story as well. So it's great. Now, since I first came into office, if people are saying, is any of this stuff work or is this just some left-wing liberal up here? I'm a business guy. We've cut our unemployment rate in half. We're about 4.8% right now. We created 2,500 new companies and over 50,000 jobs in the last 5 years. And we were the 4th fastest city in the country to recover from the recession. So if you're not creating opportunity through jobs, then all this is just a social experiment. You've got to get those kind of results. And it's important, too, as I transition, that every city showcases its authenticity. You all are doing this here. You don't want somebody to come to your city and say, well, that felt like anywhere USA. What's unique about that spot? We're developing a year-round tourism experience around one of our areas of authenticity. We welcome about 16 million visitors a year to Louisville. Part of that is fueled by the exploding popularity of what I referred to earlier, and that is bourbon and bourbon tourism. We call that bourbonism. So what Napa is to wine tourism, we have become that for bourbon tourism. Because Kentucky produces 95% of the world's bourbon. The other 5% is counterfeit. So stay away from that. So almost 1 million people journeyed on the Bourbon Trail last year. Come and check it out. It's a great experience. One of the challenges that Oklahoma City and Louisville face as medium-sized cities, along with the other medium-sized cities in the country, is airlift. You all need more direct flights to the coast, to the big cities. We do too. So you get that through population growth, or you get it through induced demand. So like when you think of Orlando, why are all the flights there? It's not the size of Orlando, right? They're going to Disney World. So as we grow bourbonism to 2-3 million visitors a year, that's one of our strategies for increasing airlift, just like perhaps you will do with your boathouse experience down here on the river. So we all try to build momentum in our city. We certainly have it, and we're working to increase it. So I want to close with one last example of innovation and how we use our citizens to help gather data around a big public health challenge. We call these folks citizen scientists. We've created some amazing improvements in our city to help folks who suffer from asthma. Unfortunately, we've got one of the higher asthma rates in the nation due to our location in the Ohio River Valley, where air can become stagnant, and so we had to do something to help there. We worked with a company called Propeller Health and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to create Air Louisville. So this program uses smart GPS-connected inhalers to help collect data on when and where people are using their inhalers. And we combine that data with the EPA to create a map that you're seeing right here. So these are heat spots on the map that would tell us where the largest incidences of inhaler use are taking place. So you press your inhaler, sign goes up to the web, aggregate the data, and produces this map. So this tells us when and where the usage is greatest, so we can better identify the connection between air quality, weather condition, asthma flare-ups, and then share this knowledge with our citizens, mitigate those areas, and then improve the health outcomes for our citizens as well. So it's a great example of kind of identifying a problem, engaging your citizens, and you better believe all the 1,000 citizens that are part of this, they've become better citizens because they say, I am part of the citizenry of this, and I'm helping make our city a better place. So I love my city, just as you all love yours, and certainly that's why you're here. And this work we're doing to help our citizens and our cities is something special, I think. Acts of citizenship, and the kind of work the great Louisvillian once described as the work of the heart. I mentioned Muhammad Ali earlier. He grew up on this humble home on Grand Avenue that you can visit. And today, of course, his legacy as both a champion athlete and global humanitarian inspires me and millions all over the world. And I find energy in his words, and for people that love their city, like you all here today, you will too. This quote is from his book, The Soul of a Butterfly, Reflections on Life's Journey, and I'll close with this. All through my life, I have been tested. My will has been tested. My courage has been tested. My soul has grown over the years, and as long as I am alive, I will continue to try to understand more because the work of the heart is never done. Thank you.